did it. Hey, here we are.
You got it.
All right, move us over here. So welcome, here's our workshop. We're going to be looking at how we can help support the language development for the children in our lives. As we get started, we're going to show just a couple of examples of children who are communicating incredible amounts of information while not using any actual words or very few early word parts. You may have seen some of these before, but we really want you to see how much these children are communicating without actually using words.
Oh.
Did you understand it though? No.
Oops.
Okay. All right. Oh, not this one. This one. Yeah, this last one. I don't know when they're gonna do next season, but they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking.
Okay, so as you can see, for this little young man and his dad, they are having an awesome time sharing a conversation about probably football. I don't know, he mentioned a team, so I'm guessing might have been football. But the little boy is using all the same gestures that mirror what his dad is doing. He's using intonation and inflection as he talks. Even though you're not really hearing words. There were a couple of things that we heard that kind of sounded like words. I have another example for you of two young children who are twin brothers, and they're having a very heated conversation. Okay, so they have that conversation for I think 2.5 minutes. They've got a lot to say to each other. But again, although you weren't really hearing words, you were hearing speech patterns. You were seeing them using their bodies and their faces to communicate. There are several points in that where they both just crack up laughing at each other about how funny whatever it is they're talking about is. There's lots of times that they look like they're just disagreeing and arguing. And those are those early building blocks of communication. So some pretty clear examples to really show you what sometimes happens. It's a lot harder when you're actually in that moment and you've got a bunch of things going on and you're doing the dishes or you're getting ready to go and there's other noises in your house. It's a lot easier when we just watch it on a screen. So we're going to work toward that. And as a lead-in for the information Vicky's getting ready to share, we have a couple of short videos of the child of a friend, and we get just a chance to hear her communicating with her mom. So we'll show you these really quick. And the first one, she is asking for a snack. Whoop. Oh goodness. All right, here we go with Miss Hazel.
What do you want out of there? You want cheese? Okay, Mom will get you some cheese. You want water too?
So that was a little short bit of Hazel communicating. And here's another one where she's telling about a story that she likes.
Bears. Give me the bears. Just told the bears.
They told the bears.
Yeah. Find the bears or tunnels.
Oh,
Find bears.
oh yeah.
Are you bears?
Oh no.
Where are you bears? Take are you bears? Take are you tunnel the are you bears? Just tunnel. But find them. Find them.
Gotta find them. Yeah. You don't gotta help me find them too.
Okay, if you're not familiar with that story, they were going on a bear hunt. So Vicki, I'm going to head us over to our next screen.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, and so looking at the videos there, you can tell that one of the very first steps to communicating is that joint attention. You have to have their attention and they have to have your attention. A joint attention is when you and your child are engaged into one subject. When your child is engaged with another person in a shared activity or looking at the object together. So if the child is not paying attention to you and you're talking to them, they're not even aware that you have anything to say. So it's really crucial that you gain their attention, and in doing that, it can be through eye gazing, through looking at them. It can be through pointing, as you can see, even through there, Hazel was pointing to the refrigerator, or when the little boy was on the couch with his dad, he was pointing to the TV, letting his dad know that's what I'm talking about. He was engaging with his dad and getting his dad's attention to look at that TV. So those are some of the very first steps in order to start our communication skills. There are several ways to promote that. And let's say your child, you want your child to look at a car or play with the car, and he's looking at the car, but he's not showing you. You can point to the car yourself and say, look, that's a car. And give him some time to really look at what you're pointing at, but getting him to look at what you're pointing at. And sometimes he'll point, and you must gain that attention to look back at what he's doing. Paying attention to what he's doing is very crucial. And then when he does, you can hold up that toy and say, look, it's a car, and point as you do that. And that way, that will hopefully get his attention to look at what you're looking at. Even if you're looking through a book and you have the book open and you see a dog, point to the dog on the page. Let him know that that is what you're talking about, and that has a name. The name is a dog. And it's crucial during this time because children are awfully young when we start this, and it's playtime is the best time and easiest time to teach language. You need to follow your child's lead. Whatever your child is interested in, if he's playing on the floor, playing with blocks, then you get down on the floor and you play on the blocks, play with the blocks with him. So and it just shows him that you're interested in what he's doing, and that's going to build that joint attention. And it also gives you a chance to build the language skills because he's playing with the car. You can start moving the car and making sounds with the car. And then he's playing with the car and he will start mimicking what you're doing. It's very crucial too in that time period that you give him some wait time. If you say the car says, "Rrr," but then you're going to move that car and wait and see if he responds. And look at him and look at the car. Kind of letting him know that this is what the car is going to do. You can do it too. And also another way is to copy your child. If your child is sitting and he is, spinning toys a little bit, spin the toys with him. Let him know that you can do what he can do and you're interested in what he's doing. So then he'll start noticing those things too. You can hold up 2 toys. Give him a choice. Which one does he want? Let him know that he has those choices. And then also with music. Music is a great way to teach your attention. Whenever you're singing some of the nursery rhymes, the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, as you're singing through the songs, leave a word out. See if he'll begin to try to say the words. And then if he doesn't, then you say it for him. And eventually he will begin to get that joint attention of saying some of those words. It's just a fun way to do it. Children love music. Also playing with bubbles. is a great way to do that too, because you want to blow bubbles and let them hear that, or ready, set, go as you're playing with cars. Another great skill used for teaching language is listening. Paying attention to your child when he or she makes any type of sounds at all. As you can see in those videos, that when the child makes sounds, that everyone responded. That let him know that you were listening. And you must use active listening with your child. Stop what you're doing, get down on his level, smile with him, raise your eyebrows, give him some body language, and lean into him a little bit. Let him know that you are listening and you are aware of what he's doing, and that all of his sounds have a meaning. So imitate his sounds sometimes. Let's see. And also, like that, just like Dad did on the couch with him, whenever Dad was imitating. He didn't know what some of the words were, but he was making up things as he went along. Like, yeah, I heard that too. Just responding back to him as he was listening, and which goes hand in hand with understanding. Just because they're listening doesn't mean they're understanding. Understanding is taking it to a different level where you know what that person is saying. They're responding in a way that allows you to communicate to one another. So, like I said before, every move and every sound the child makes is considered communication to you. You'll be as you're developing this, you're developing cause and effect relationships when you're communicating with them in this way, even the simplest of sounds. And in that way, he is able to make the same reaction back to you. And so, and even as he gets older, some of the things that continue to build on these skills is, if he sees an apple in a book, he point to the apple and you say apple. But then you're in the kitchen and he says apple. He's probably requesting for an apple. Say, oh yes, you want an apple? So then you change your tone of voice, your intonations, and so that way he is able to see that an apple can be used in different ways and it's in different places. And as time goes on, he'll begin to realize that apple has many meanings. It's something you can eat. It's something that you find in a book. It's something you might see outside growing on a tree. And that's how that language begins. Because as they go with that, they're also going to start generalizing. Every time they see a red circle, or even it's an apple. A peach could be an apple. You're like, yes, that's a peach. This is an apple. Showing the differences. Okay, my speaker is not working. Have y'all seen that?
Yes, Vicky, your speaker, something is, sometimes we can hear you good, but sometimes it's doing a lot of sound. So I don't know if it's something with your audio.
Okay, I don't know what.
We can hear you, but with a lot of interference, that like a sound in the background. Maybe
Okay.
don't get too close to the computer, and so I don't know.
I think I'm too close to the computer.
Like right now, we can hear you good.
Okay. All right. I guess just let me know, because I don't know and I'm not sure what to change.
It sounds really good right now, Vicki. Are you ready for us to watch that first video, or some of that first video?
That's fine. Sure.
Do you want, I don't remember which one it is. Which one is our first?
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I was going to maybe say a few more things before we get to the video, because what I was going to say too is that with these new words as children are learning, they need to hear these words hundreds of times before it begins to really sink in for them to know what that word is. So it's important to use the same language over and over with them. And reading and using books is a great way to build these skills. And so in this video that we're looking at here, it is with a mom and her son looking at a book together as she's teaching language with him. So yes, Tammy, go ahead.
Welcome to Toronto Public Health's Playing with Language video. Meet Ben and Joanna, a mother and her son playing together and using wonderful strategies to maximize Ben's early learning of language. Follow along with us as we bring words up on the screen to highlight and identify some of the great things that Joanna is doing with Ben and how he's responding to them.
Shoes. I see shoes and I see a little My little doggy.
Stop right there, Tammy, for a second. You see right there how she stopped and she let him fill in the word doggy. She knew he knew that word and she gave him an opportunity to use it. So that's very important when you're reading with them. Okay, go ahead, Tammy.
Passing cars, noisy street. I see a snowplow. There's the word, snowplow. There's the word, garbage man.
Okay, Tammy can stop. And as you can see there, Mom is pointing to the words and she's actually not reading the book. She's going through the pages and he is kind of wanting to flip through the pages, and that's probably why she's not reading the words, but she is pointing out the words because he's wanting to go quickly, but she's getting his attention and showing him the important things to her is the words and those pictures, but she's kept him engaged by doing that and not making him listen to the whole story, but she's getting lots of good literacy skills and language in there. Okay, Tammy, go ahead.
4 predictors of literacy are print awareness, alphabet knowledge, oral language, that's storytelling and learning new words and vocabulary, and phonological awareness, knowing that certain sounds go with certain letters. How does language and early literacy develop? Remember, it's never too early to start reading to your child. Even young babies respond to your voice and expression. Start looking at picture books. Point to pictures and your child will try to imitate. A young child can copy sounds and actions that you make. They use sounds to get attention. They can understand the names of familiar people and objects. Learn to recognize and respond to their own names. When you talk, play, and read with your child, you help develop your child's language skills and readiness to read and write.
Hey, the girl is in bed.
Books are a great way to work on your child's understanding of vocabulary and language and their understanding of new concepts. You help their ability to speak in sentences, putting words together, and using new words, even having more attention and listening skills. Their readiness for reading and writing will certainly improve.
Turn. Young elephant and old elephant too.
I think that's
Can't
good,
see
Tammy.
him.
So as you can see, this, I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead.
I was just saying, as you can tell, that books can build up lots of language skills here because you're teaching them the reading, the writing, the looking at pictures, the looking at words. It's just a great way in engagement with your child as well. So it's a very simple thing to do, and it's never too early to start. The next step in building these language skills is talking with your child, communicating. Children start communicating at a very early age, where they're crying and they're smiling, they're making sounds to reach for objects. As they grow, those cries begin to start using gestures and such as pointing and sign language. It is important to know how your child communicates so that you can understand why he communicates. So all those ways are very crucial into building his way to talking. And as we've learned that receptive language builds before expressive language, as the videos we did see, that the children definitely were understanding what they were saying, but the expressive language was not as clear yet. So it's why it's so important to do some of the early building skills we've talked about. And again, it's that cause effect, that if I say something, I get something. If I do something, if I drop the towel, my mom picks it up. And so he begins to learn that there's an engagement they build with each other. Expanding on words. As he begins to say words, it's important. If he says the word car, then you want to say big car. Or do you want the big red car? Build on what they're using describing words, the size and colors and shapes. And again, it's like we said earlier, it takes at least 100 times for a child to really be able to understand and use words that's been given to him. So the more you use them, the better it's going to be. A good example of that is in this next video. It's on expanding language.
Ready, bag, go!
Welcome Welcome to Toronto Public Health's Playing with Language video. Meet Ben and Joanna, a mother and her son playing together and using wonderful strategies to maximize Ben's early learning of language. Follow along with us as we bring words up on the screen to highlight and identify some of the great things that Joanna is doing with Ben and how he's responding to them.
The little fire truck is driving.
One of the most
Stop
important
right there for a second,
strategies.
please. And it was really hard to hear that on this particular video. I mean, with this setup right here, right now. But the little boy said the car is driving, which he said the same comment that Mom had made. Mom missed that opportunity. She didn't hear it because she heard something else in the house. But as you could, he picked up quickly on what she had given him, the importance of making comments rather than asking questions. He is following her lead and learning these words. Okay, go ahead, Tammy.
Yeah, just to build on that, Vicki, I think one of the nice things that you see in this video is that the majority of the conversation is both of them commenting and then being able to, Mom is building on what her son says. So she's not saying, what is this? What does it say? What does it do? She's following what he's doing, and the car's turning around, the car's stopping. There, like Vicki mentioned, there are maybe a couple of more places where she could have followed his lead a little bit better, where instead of being concerned about what her car was doing, that she could have used that paying attention that Vicki mentioned and looked at the fact that he had his own car going. And so she could have moved her attention to what he was doing and been able to give those comments and narration, or take her car and go over and interact with his car. But she really is providing a lot of rich language and not expecting anything from him, but waiting and listening by paying attention and then being able to build on what he says.
You'll hear Joanna using is how she makes comments instead of asking questions. When Ben or Joanna are playing with a car or a different kind of toy, she always makes a point of saying the name of the car and then beginning to expand her language to more than just the name, the different parts that make it, the movements and actions that the object makes. This is really important. It means that as Ben is looking at something, touching something, and listening to something, he's also hearing the words that describe those objects and actions. It's really important that when your child has a toy, that you try not to ask them questions about it. For instance, if they pick up a car to play with, that you're not saying, hey, what's that? What's that called? What you doing there? Instead, give your child the words that describe that object to help them build their vocabulary with wonderful words that clearly describe what they're playing with and how to play with it. You can go from using single words very quickly to expanding to phrases and sentences and helping your child to learn about the world in which they live using language.
One of the things that I think is just a little bit funny in that, and I was kind of like, huh? Is that at one point the narrator says, she always comments. She's always listening. And obviously that's for this training, but no, we can't always comment. We can't always be listening. But when we can take that time to sit down, or when we can take that moment and be present in attending and providing language and listening and helping a child to understand and understanding what they're saying, that's a wonderful benefit. It just isn't always.
Right. Another way of playing with your children is also to give them choices, like even during snack time. Give them, do you want milk or do you want water? Hold the items up, let them make a choice. Have them point to it if pointing is where they're at. And when they say, they point to the milk, then you say milk. And give them that opportunity to repeat after you. Wait, give them wait time. When I say wait time, it's really to stop and listen and to see if they respond. And the importance of that is they begin to realize their words have meaning, and that if I say milk, I'm going to get milk. And then also, if you have milk and water in your hand and they say milk and they point to the water, you give them the water because that's what they pointed to. But then they begin to realize, no, that's not what I want. I wanted milk. Then they realize that that word has more meaning. That's what that word means, is milk. I get milk when I say it. It's very important that we give them those opportunities to do that. And the most important thing through all this is model, 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 model. You can't model too much. Talk with your child all day long. There's opportunities throughout your day in order to build their nouns, their vocabulary using nouns and verbs and adjectives and sequence of events, things you're already doing. We just don't talk about it in a natural way. But when they're early on, it's a great time to do that. Tammy, will you show the video next about a little boy and his mom talking about her daily routines?
Yeah. During this video, for all of you who are participating, we're going to stop along the way and give you a chance to comment some of the things that you saw the mom and the parent doing, or any of the questions that you might have. So we'll stop this video along the way. It's a little bit longer video, but we want to give you time to make comments for yourself. There we go.
Welcome to Toronto Public Health's Playing with Language video. Meet Ben and Joanna, a mother and her son playing together and using wonderful language strategies to maximize Ben's early learning of language. Follow along with us as we bring words up on the screen to highlight and identify some of the great things Joanna's doing with Ben and how he's responding to them.
Mama, open the cupboard. There's the bowls. We need Benny's bowl and Mommy's bowl. Here.
Okay, so that's what we're going to be watching. Just is the two of them getting ready to share breakfast or a snack. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Did you notice that he starts to look at her? You can see his eyes in the screen. He started to attend to what she's saying. Take a moment, and if you have some thoughts, what is she doing that's drawing his attention away from his toys to what she's talking about? Does anybody want to share some comments?
She used his name.
Yeah. She drew his attention by talking to him. I'm speaking to you.
She changed the sound in her voice as she was calling out the things, as she was showing the action.
Gaining his attention through her voice and her intonation. A couple of things that I noticed is she didn't use a lot of words. She used the same words, and she paired her words with action and showing. And so she gave him language that was just a little bit more complex than what he's able to communicate. So remember in the last video, we saw that he was beginning to say some words or kind of putting a few words together in a sentence. But she was just giving him a little bit more than that. She wasn't saying, okay, it's time for breakfast. We're gonna have strawberries and yogurt. I'm getting out the bowls, and then I'm gonna go to the cupboard and get our spoons. She was giving him smaller chunks. Let's watch a couple more of them.
Along with her rate of speech too. She just slowed things way down than you normally would with an adult.
Here's Benny's little spoon and Mommy's big spoon. Ben, I see the yogurt in the fridge. Ah, yogurt. We will eat the yogurt. Open the fridge. I see some yummy, yummy strawberries. So good. So
I love that part where he's imitating, he's communicating through repeating what he hears his mom saying or the sound she's making, because she's saying, ah, and he does the same thing. And that, again, like we talked about at the beginning, is communication. That is the building blocks of language. I'm gonna, oh.
Someone commented on the side and said, yes, she uses easy words for her son. And yes, exactly. It's words that he can build on, he can easily understand. And you'll see as it goes on the next few minutes here that she's using lots of action words. She's talking about cutting and pouring and opening. So she's not just labeling things, she's giving him verbs. That's what it takes to build language. You have to have the noun and the verbs. So she does a beautiful job of really emphasizing those verbs as well as the nouns.
Watch this next part and see if you can identify a couple of vocabulary words that she uses to help build his language.
so good. I see cereal. Shake, shake, shake. First we put in the yogurt. And one for Benny. Then we put in the strawberries. I'm cutting the strawberry with a knife. Then we pour in the cereal. Mama is pouring the cereal. And cereal for Benny.
Okay. What did you see or hear her doing as she was describing what she was doing for him that helped to build his communication? Nobody wants to share right now, which is fine, which is fine. But if you're thinking in your head of a couple of the things that you noticed, you may have noticed that she said, first, we're going to put in the yogurt. Then we're going to add the strawberries. Mama is cutting the strawberries. Then we're going to add the cereal. When she brought out the box of cereal, do you remember what she kind of did to help again draw his attention and hold his attention?
She shook it.
Yeah, and gave a new vocabulary word, right? Because she said shake, shake, shake as she was doing it. Mm-hmm. Anybody else notice anything before we?
I think it's important to take notice here too that although she's using simple vocabulary, she's using normal tone of voice. She's not talking what people call baby talk. She's using the talk that you would normally speak to anyone else. So I think that's really crucial to keep in mind that no matter the age of the child, when you're beginning the early stages, that we need to talk to them in a typical tone of voice and not that real high-pitched baby tone. So to build these language skills.
Okay, we'll go back to it.
What a yummy breakfast.
One of the strategies that Joanne is using really well is how to comment and avoid asking questions. We often ask too many questions as parents, and this stops conversation instead of keeping it going. Instead of asking questions, try to ask fewer questions. Turn a question into a comment. Label new words instead of testing whether your child knows the word. Really, you should only ask questions when you need to find out information like, where's mommy's keys?
And there's Benny's bowl. Uh-oh. Some got off the spoon. Some yogurt got off the spoon. Oh, that was a little bite, a little tiny bite. So yummy. Benny's bowl and Mommy's bowl.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to pause it there because I think that it gives a lot of those good examples of what we've been looking at and moves us into our next portion of our presentation. Was there anything else, Vicki, that you wanted to add before?
You notice there, now she's using more adjectives for him. So it's just a more different type of words to build his vocabulary. You know, tiny and little and yummy. She's using, she used the verbs for opening and shaking, and then she went into the adjectives. So it's just a nice way to build a complete total language development.
Yeah. Okay, so we looked at some of those building blocks. We looked at gaining attention from your child, providing them your attention, the listening, you know, so the attention is also, I'm listening. And by modeling that I'm listening, that helps my child to listen. I'm talking, I'm using a normal tone of voice. Obviously, we have some of those higher and lower pitches as we're going along to draw them in as we need to. We're slowing our rate of speech down or using fewer words and helping to teach language, teach vocabulary by repetition and providing additional opportunities, which builds their understanding, as well as showing the person we're talking to, the child we're talking to, that we're understanding them by focusing on listening to them and commenting, repeating, responding to what they're saying. To summarize all of those building blocks, you know, Vicki gave us a lot of great examples of reading, of playing, of blowing bubbles. To take away and to be able to utilize at home with your own children, grandchildren, the kids that you work with, we want to really focus on what we call OWLs, and it actually comes from the Hannon program out of Canada. And OWLs stands for, is an acronym for observe, wait, and listen. So we're going to look a little bit about what they mean by those. So when we're, whoops, I went too far. When we observe, we're observing the child's actions. We're observing their body language, gestures, and facial expressions. That helps us to learn what they're interested in, what they may be wanting to tell us. If we are aware of where they're looking, of where they're reaching, then we're also at that point still modeling communication skills. I'm down on your level. I'm observing what you're trying to communicate with me about. If we go back to the little boy and the dad who are sitting on the couch, he looks to, when his son points to the TV, he looks to the television and gives a response back. I'm paying attention to you. We're in this together. And you see that little boy doing that, shifting his attention to dad and to the TV screen. So we're building their ability to listen and pay attention by showing them, I'm going to listen and pay attention to you. We're also showing them what you have to say is important and I'm ready to listen to it. So I'm giving you my attention. I'm ready to hear what you're going to tell me. Which comes to our next part, which is waiting. Waiting is tough, especially in the beginning when you're just getting started waiting. Waiting means I say something and then I pause. We've modeled that in our presentation today to give people the opportunity to comment. There's a lot of dead air and we're not jumping in, right? So we're waiting, we're giving people the opportunity to do two things. If you think about what you were doing, you were kind of going through this process of, okay, what did they just say? What did that mean? is there something I can say? And then clicking so that you could talk, or getting on your computer so that you could comment through through your keyboard and getting that message out. That all took time. It doesn't happen as quickly as it happens with adults. And honestly, with adults, it probably shouldn't happen as quickly as it does. One of the things that we all know that is a difficult thing for people to do is to truly be present and listen. Most of us are already thinking about what our response is going to be when we're in a conversation. And that wait time feels uncomfortable to begin with. One of the things that the Hannon program talks about and that we know about language development is that, like, waiting 10 seconds, truly pausing and waiting. Here it says to count to 3, and it's not 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 3. You may have noticed in some of the videos that wait time in there. In the beginning, that's tough for kids too, because they're not used to somebody waiting for them to take a turn. They're used to people just talking. There hasn't been as much expectation on them to say something unless they were directly being asked a question. So now we're saying, okay, I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to make a comment, and then I'm going to wait and give you a turn. It's challenging. It takes time to develop. As we've noticed as we're going along in these videos, sometimes it's easier than at other times. When we watched that first video of Hazel, and we'll go back and review her in a moment, watch that first video of Hazel, she's got a lot that she wants to say about that she wants cheese and water for a snack. And she and Mom were having a conversation, but the conversation was probably a lot shorter. Excuse me, I keep calling her Hannah. Hazel has a very large vocabulary and loves to talk, but because Mom's asking her questions, what do you want? What do you want? Oh, you want cheese, which isn't a question, but only gives her 2 choices of yes or no for the most part. It's limiting how much she can say, versus in that second video when she's talking about her favorite story and you hear Dad in the background and he's just repeating what she's saying. He's showing, I understand. So that waiting, looking, listening expectantly is so very important. Which brings us to that listening, paying attention to what your child is saying, the sounds they're making. You may not always be able to tell what those words are. You can attempt to respond. Sometimes when we're just in a really great moment and our kid is really involved with us, they'll try to correct what we said. And they may repeat themselves, they may give more information, they may point and gesture. And sometimes it just, maybe, you know, you're talking with a child, maybe your child has a lot of difficulty with sounds. They've got lots of language, but the sounds are challenging. We can also just repeat what we heard, which again says, I'm paying attention, I'm listening, I'm trying to understand you. I'm listening to what you have to say. I'm present here in this moment with you. All right, that gets us to a moment where we were going to work on practicing, but looking at our time, I think we're gonna skip that practice. We kind of did that as we went through, and have some time for you to ask any questions that you might have.
I have a question. My 3-year-old, he actually loves to talk and talks a lot, but he's not satisfied with if he's telling me about, hey Mom, that's a big tree. He's not satisfied with me saying, yeah. He'll repeat himself and repeat himself and repeat himself until I say, oh yeah, that's a big tree, until I say the whole thing that he said.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge him, and it's not enough just to acknowledge him, but you have to acknowledge that you heard everything he said, or he has a meltdown.
Yeah, absolutely, Amy. So he wants more than just, he wants to hear you engaging in that turn taking with him. And it's nice because it gives you that opportunity to build on his language. So he says, hey, that's a big tree. It does. You're right. It gives you that opportunity to say, it's a big tree. It's green. Or it's far away. So you're being able to then add on to that, which is exactly right. So what you're saying is going on with your son mirrors what we've been talking about, which is wonderful because he has all that vocabulary and he has that expectation that you're going to listen, you're going to pay attention, and you're going to communicate with me and show me that you understood me. That's really cool. I can hear what you're saying is that it's frustrating sometimes because if you don't do it, he gets angry.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that was normal or typical or healthy, but it's excessive sometimes, it feels like. But you're telling me that's cool.
Well, I don't have to live with a child who is getting frustrated when I don't talk with him all the time. But in terms of language development, that is a really neat skill, and probably is in this growth of language stage that he's wanting to communicate with you so much. Vicki, do you have some thoughts?
No, I agree with that 100%. I think that he just really wants that reassurance that you're understanding exactly what he's saying. There's more than just a tree. It's the big tree or whatever you said. I mean, so I definitely think that he's just wanting reassurance that you understand what he's saying, and it's important to him that you get it. So yeah, and eventually that will probably outgrow itself in some ways, but yeah, I think it's a great skill to have. Tammy, did you see the question ask, how do we encourage making different words when the child doesn't make much sounds besides one repeated sound like mom, 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 mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's where, again, we have to start right where they are. So they're saying mama, mama, and we're saying mama, 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 happy. Pause. And if they go back to mama, mama, yeah, mama, Joey. So we just continue to give that time and that opportunity. One of the things that Vicki had mentioned in the beginning is on average, so this is not obviously just a set number and it's not the high end, on average it takes a child having heard a word, and again we know hearing means that we're paying attention and listening 100 times before they're going to start to use that word. And so depending on the age of the child, depending on how much vocabulary they've heard and how much opportunity they've really had to focus and listen, and then that wait time to say something, it can take a very long time. But you've got a great start because your child is there giving you something. It's just not everything you want. And certainly what we're giving is not everything that's involved in developing language. These are those building blocks, those beginning pieces that you can do throughout your day. You can do when it's bath time to get dressed, playing with a toy, is providing that language input.
And then also finding his favorite things too, whether it be his favorite food, his favorite toy, his favorite blanket. And if the names you use with that, those are going to be maybe only the first things he's using that will come before other things because it has a lot of meaning and desire for him. So I would encourage a lot of those things as well.
Yeah, one of the things that you won't hear us recommending when as a profession we're helping kids to develop those building blocks of language is you won't hear us saying correct how they say a word. So if a child is talking about the cat, your family cat, and everybody calls the cat in your family a kitty, and he's saying Didi, then you understood what he wanted to say. It wasn't a matter of not understanding, it's that it didn't sound the way you wanted it to. And so we model back, yeah, kitty. But I'm not saying, say kitty, tell me kitty. I'm not doing that when I'm wanting to build communication because I want the child to understand, I understood you. Speech sounds, which is a whole other part of communication, develop much later. And one of the most important aspects of developing that full communication is, I understood what you were saying. It didn't sound great, but I'm going to go for it and show you that I understood, or that I think I understand. At the very least, I want to understand. Other questions or comments? Give you another few moments. All right. Thank you all for your time today, for providing us with an hour of your very valuable week to share with you some of the things that we really have focused our careers on, hold as very valuable in helping children to develop communication strategies. We'll be providing everyone with some handouts, and we will have a recording, like we mentioned, of this video so that people can go back and watch it. In the handouts, I will put clips to some of those videos that we watched, as well as a couple of more, so that if you're curious and want to know a little bit about it, you'll have those accessible. And if there are additional questions related to speech and language, feel free to reach out to us in an email. Both Vicki and I are not formally working this summer, so we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But like everybody else right now, we're doing all the stuff we need to do to get ready to go back in the fall. Thank you all so much. Oh goodness, now I went to another video.
Like a snake. You see it? It's an S.
Hi everyone.
We have S. And B. Look here. Oh, I love this one. N. You say it. N. Good. Look, Mommy. Oh, that's great, honey. Now go pick up that stuff in the hallway and put it back in the thing. You know, the big green one.
Thank you.